And now on to our final segment for this week. It's a segment that we all eagerly await, and everybody agrees there's just so much to it. The host here is Mr. MANOJ Singh, the CEO of Caesar Productions. Today, Mr. Singh is caught in a chit-chat mode with the second generation, and that too, growing up in the U.S. His guests here are attorney Asim Humayun and school counselor Jason Boteler. An interesting topic. Let's see.
Welcome to Chit Chat. I'm MANOJ Singh. Hello, Adab, Namaste. Today we are going to talk about an important topic, growing up in America. This was a two-part series. On part one, I interviewed the first generation parents. Today we are going to talk about to the second generation children, and also let me introduce them first. On my right is Asim Humayun. He's an attorney. And on my left is Jason Boteler. He's a school counselor. Now, Asim's parents came from Pakistan, and he grew up there. He was born there, and then he came to United States. Now, Jason was born and brought up here in Maryland, and quite a bit basically an American. So we want to get two different perspectives today. Welcome to both of you. Thank you. Thank you. So let's start with Asim. Give us a little bit to the audience about your background.
Okay. So, like I said, my name is Asim. I'm an attorney. I was born here, but I did grow up a little bit in Pakistan. So I went to Churchill High School in Potomac. I went to Maryland, go Terps. And then I recently graduated grad school, and now I work as specializing in criminal defense. I do all the litigation, civil litigation for my firm.
Jason?
I grew up in Montgomery County, from a middle class to an upper middle class family. And I went to Towson University, where I got a history degree, and I went to Johns Hopkins, where I got my counseling degree. And I work at a middle school in Silver Spring.
Good. So we all know that South Asian families in general are quite protective, provide financial support to their children almost until they graduate from college. And almost like what is lacking is physical activity. I don't see much of our kids doing sports or even doing like normal chores like raking leaves, and cutting grass. A lot of emphasis is always on education. And there could be a very good reason for that, and we'll talk about it. So Asim, did your parent have a different expectations from your counterparts, American friends?
No, and there's something to it. I do think that South Asian parents have a very, very big, very heavy emphasis and a primary emphasis on education in itself. My parents did so as well. They were very adamant about us, completing our school. It didn't matter what we wanted to do. We were allowed to partake in any activities that we wanted as long as the education element was covered, and that was the litmus test for being able to even being allowed to do anything else. So no, I absolutely agree with you. I think that in our culture, in our community, and even in my family, education has been a very big deal. But Uncle, I think there's a reason behind it, right? So when our parents move over here to America, right, they have this idea, this concept of getting a new life that they're going to grow into, and they're limited from in their perspective from what they see back in India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, and South Asian countries, where there's less room for being open-minded in five professions, and the consistent, typical niches that you can get into are, being a doctor, being a lawyer, being an engineer, and because these are the professions that are revered back in the South Asian parts of this world. So when they come here, their mindset is, if that succeeds there, that succeeds here, and all those professions are very education intensive. So I think that's why there's such an emphasis solely on education, because that's how they perceive financial and life success.
Yeah, and I know in some cases is also a guilt factor that they always tell their children, we worked so hard to be here, we are working hard, and only reason we are doing this is because of you. We want you to complete college, get a good job, and it's all for you. So there's that always a high expectation from their children. So Jason, what was your parents' expectation here in the U.S.?
I came from a family of educators, so education was a priority. My mom's a special ed teacher. All my aunts were special ed teachers or teachers in general. But it was more about a well-rounded childhood. So sports was always part of it. I played baseball, did cross country. But what they really tried to put in me was a good work ethic. So they gave me chores. They encouraged me to get a job at 14. And the work ethic was the main point that they were pushing. In terms of college, they're like, you can do what you want to do, just if you have a good work ethic and do the best you can. So, education was a need, and they saw that and they pushed that, but it wasn't the only part of life they saw.
Yeah, I mean, quite contrasting, but a little bit similar as well. So as a school counselor, what are some of the cultural conflicts you see when these children from South Asia come to you, and what is your approach for a win-win situation?
I see these kids in conflict between, cultural influences on both sides, at home as well as in the school, on TV, just in, day-to-day living. And I see this causing a lot of issues with their parents, arguments, stuff of that nature. And what I try to tell the kids and I try to tell the parents is just to remind them that their worldview is different. As much as I want their children to see their worldview, they were brought up in a different situation, and that they need to acknowledge that, and just try to work on the communication piece.
So this is a heavy question to both of you. Do you ever look back, or even this thought crossed your mind, like what would be an ideal parent for you?
I love you, Mom. I love you, Dad. No, actually, I think overall I had an excellent experience. My parents, they had the opportunity, and I was very fortunate of going to college in the States before they moved back to Pakistan, and they were embedded with the idea that there's different views and different perspectives and approaches to handling situations. So I was personally very, very fortunate. I did see a lot of my fellow South Asian friends growing up here with parents who only had those blinders on, circumstantial blinders. It's not like there's no malicious intent. Going back to what you said, your parents give you that guilt trip because they did all this for you. Well, there's a truth to that. I think mentally, that's what they did. They gave up everything with the hope. It comes off as a guilt trip, but they really are that much committed to the next generation. So like I said, personally speaking, I was very fortunate. Ideally, as far as ideal parents in our culture, in our community are concerned, I think having that open-minded perspective and at least acknowledging the existence of the factors that their children deal with that the parents weren't exposed to is very, very important.
Well, Jason?
I think I had the ideal parent. My parents helped me out. I was a problem child, so I created a lot of conflict. But they were there every day and pushed me, and I would never trade them. I mean, I think that's my
good points, and it's very nice. I mean, I loved my parents as well. Now, what are some of the issues, Asim, you see in the South Asian friends you have and your peers, some of the challenges they were facing, maybe because their parents were strict or unrealistic?
Well, just speaking from my profession, like I said, I do a lot of criminal defense litigation. One of the, and going off what Jason said, this concept of a bifurcated life where you have a family life and then you have a school and friends life, and they don't necessarily mingle, or because it's difficult for the parents to reconcile the difficulties that the children go through, or to be able to understand the different decisions we have to make. And to put it in a practical example, I have a number of clients, from South Asian descent who have, gotten involved in a certain situation, whether it's a DUI or a drug possession or an assault or a fight. And if the parents find out, that's going to be a devastating experience in their life. And some of them have actually shielded their family in its entirety. Now, I know their families. I know that they want the open communication, honesty, but that's actually, it's hindered, and there's an adverse impact on that openness and that communication, because their parents that from South Asia aren't open to these realities that their children face, and they can't understand the difficulty of the decisions because they say, "Oh, I never did drugs. Well, I never drank. I never got into fights." Well, because you never had to face those challenges growing up where you grew up, versus your children who are dealing with it today. So, absolutely, I think that there's this duality in your existence is created because of the closed-mindedness, which is inherent. And it's exactly doing shows like this to talk about what else we can do differently and be a little more open-minded.
Correct. So my approach, our approach at home is, and I have strived to it and trying to do it even today, that I want my kids to be my best friends. I don't want them to be afraid of talking about any issue, whether drugs, sex, or even stress at work, or work-related, or even financial, and want them to speak out. In fact, we invite them quite often, have a drink with them, and might as well hear him or her tell us what's going on through their mind rather than hearing it through others or hiding. I know in our community, my kids tell me that some of their friends, how they lie about things because they are very afraid to talk to their parents because their parents have a very set way of managing them, and they don't accept certain kind of issues or in American culture. So, any last minute thought, Asim, you'd like to give to our second generation children, or Jason, you as a counselor?
I would just say that you need to work with your parents. You need to work with your parents because they are on your side, and there is a difference between doing what they don't want you to do and helping them understand that you're facing different challenges. And you have it takes work, it takes time. This is years and years and years of generation mentality that is now getting changed all of a sudden because you have all these new things that you're being exposed to. So it's communication. I mean, absolutely, it's communication. And parents, you don't have to be okay with your child doing something you're against, but understand that there's other things that they have to deal with in life.
Same thing. Work on the communication skills and try to explain your perspective and accept and respect your parents' perspective as well.
Yeah, so common theme is communication, and it is very important to seek counseling. I will tell you myself, it helped me a lot. There were some times in my life when I was going through a lot of issues, and when I had a counseling with my children with a professional counselor, I came to know a lot about things which I had never thought about. I heard their perspective. And one of the things I would let you, towards the end of the episode, my last thought, one of the things still remains with me, a counselor told me, was let it go. Manoj, you cannot control everything in your life. There are some things, these are kids, you gave them the best environment or an education you could, and now they're on their own. Let them grow, let them learn. So I would again say communicate, get counseling if necessary, and good luck, all the best, and see you on my next show.